This is the channel I go live on the least often because at least three things have to align for me to feel the need to put it on the Connect the Dots channel instead of on the other ones that are filled with all the dots anyway. This is not Brett Cooper's dad, but it is her brother's dad. Got here from her brother's obituary, or you find a grave, sorry, not obituary. Don Edward Porter, born January 12th, 1944, which comes up a lot. It became a date at the end of the Mean Girls year, 2023, when the new Mean Girls was announced for 2024, and that was the release date. Most recently, the Children's Blizzard of 1888, but my finding out that it happened. I believe that was on yesterday's broadcast. That happens to be his birthday, and he died on my great grandmother's birthday, my maternal line, the one who died on Allie's birthday, was one of the first birthdays that was like, wait, and has our relative who's around my daughter's age born on that day. While I was in Edmonton visiting my mother and grandma with my child, because I didn't leave her home as a newborn by herself in Vancouver. This is her brother. He has a twin brother who is her schizophrenic, marijuana smoking. We're going to listen to the psychiatrist, the only psychiatrist I might actually respect, at least parasocially, for his expertise, partly because he's taken on. This is David Grant Porter Cooper, who died in 2007 on Valentine's Day of a heart attack at 17 years old, and is a twin. February 7th, 1990. That is also Ashton Kutcher's birthday. I mean, it's Ryan number ones and a bunch of it. But Ashton Kutcher's birthday, who I also mentioned yesterday's broadcast on, not the Jubilee Crates, the other one, the bigger one. The biggest one I have that I can't remember the name of because whatever. Has like the same logo as this one, but with words, tree snark on it. Ashton Kutcher is also a twin. And the Nazi who experimented on twins died on Ashton Kutcher and his twin, Michael's birthday. They have their dad, or their stepdad, I believe, Brett's mom. Dad, do you want to get it right? They all have the same mom. And Brett's dad is something. I don't remember what I was saying. Unnamed something. Named? Who knows? Who knows what I was talking about? Let's showcase this. Both it has pictures, but it David Grant Porter Cooper of Chattanooga passed away on Wednesday, February 14th, 2007. He was a sophomore at the McKaylee School. David was a kind and thoughtful young man whose gentle spirit touched all who knew him. A gifted artist, he aspired to one day become an architect. Sorry, I'm playing a game. That's literally the thing on here right now. He also a focused competitor who participated on the McCallie crew and wrestling team. He was an Eagle Scout and a national finalist in Destination Imagination, an international problem-solving competition. Yeah. Prior to enrolling in McCallie in 2005, David attended the Marine Military School in Harlingen, Texas, and primary schools in Orcas, Washington, and Orinda, California. He was preceded in death by his father, Don Edward Porter, which we just looked at, who, by the way, died of brain cancer. Did we not see that while we were on it? Died of brain cancer. On March 9th. Okay. Oh, and no, yeah, today. Today is my grandfather, the only grandparent I never met because he died before I was born, who died. And again, that my mother doesn't know that I had brain surgery on her brother's birthday. And then I found out about it Maybe because I didn't tell her and she was a weird you found. Anyway, on her the anniversary of her dad's death, that I would assume she knows. I don't even remember how I came to know that he died on March 18th, but his birthday, April 1st. Today. Survivors include his parents, Diane and Michael, his twin brother, Reed, older brother, Chase, younger sister, Brett, and beloved dog, Daisy. He's also survived by his grandparents, Bonnie and Lennox of Wellington, New York, I don't know, NCS, North Carolina, and Bobby and Farrell of Rio Verde, Arizona. Okay, there's the 50 states. Other surviving relatives include Susan and her children, Katie, Hannah, and Sarah, Laurel and Stephen and their children. Okay, we're not reading all those things. The service celebrating David's life will be held at the McCallie School Chapel at 3 p.m. on Monday, February 19th. Reverend Dr. Jerry officiating immediately following the service. Friends of David and his family are invited to the reception. 500 dogs have. Okay, all right, okay, back. Why are we going back? I don't know what we're going back to. I'm coming back here and stopping that screen and showcasing. No, well, we did just talk about it yesterday. They just put up newborn adoption, the Della vlogs, and it was 2 days ago. So they might even, I'd literally just shared the thing that I X'd out of. Come on, goodbye, find a grave. No brain, nope. Huge development in the Charlie Kirk case. That's the Young Turks. Just came out in the last 24 hours, I believe. That there isn't definitive proof that Tyler Robinson, who shares my very first boyfriend's last name, has that he was the one that he had a gun, prints match, but the bullets don't match the shot and killed Charlie Kirk. So that's a problem. That's a hole in any Law and Order episode, any CSI, any cop show, right? Like any solve any crime, you forgot to do that well, right? You forgot that people were going to need actual evidence. This isn't the grassy knoll anymore, and multiple JFK. One was Will and Grace, I believe she called the shot a grassy knoll or something because it shoots you twice in the head or something along those lines. And then something else was JFK, and I don't remember what it was. One was the airport. And then a third that was, anyway. And Kennedy Center on something. I don't know. I'm trying to keep more notes, but they're not right here. So, for my own benefit, Epstein deposition, everything Bill and Clinton, Rotten Mango. No, we'll be listening to that later, though. The drugs that destroyed 10 celebrities' lives. That is the same channel. How bad is cannabis really? And that's the one we're looking for. My brain just couldn't remember because there we are. So Brett Cooper, who is a right-wing influencer, talking about her brother who has THC-induced psychosis, lives in a psych ward where he doesn't have access to his phone despite his rich and powerful sister and his who could pay for and get him access to a better psych ward where he can have access to his family. Like how I had access to my phone in the psych ward because I'm a mother and my child needed to have access to me. Dr. Joseph is going to do a much better job of some brains can't handle marijuana. I don't know whether that's something that whether marijuana psychosis, like actual broken with reality, that woman who went home with some guy from the dog park and murdered him because they smoked a joint and she stabbed him and herself multiple times. I don't know if the dogs were, I don't know what happened with the dogs. I believe she got she was found insane for that. Like she was insane from marijuana in those moments. Very clearly, probably would do anything to go back in time and not go and smoke a joint, right? It wasn't self-defense. He didn't attack her. It was just drug-induced psychosis. That schizophrenia is something that shows up in very late teens at the earliest, basically, even though there's child version as well. But like, and like up till kind of 30, 35, mostly it doesn't show up after that. From what I understand, I didn't do any like research right before this. I'm just going off my memory and understanding and probably lines I heard in Hollywood and shit. That if it's going to click in, you're going to start seeing things, hearing things at some point in time. And if marijuana is, or any drug, any event is the instigating factor, it's understandable to blame that event, but it doesn't mean there wouldn't have been a different one, right? A different drug, a different stressful event that they wouldn't have had an event of seeing and hearing things that other people don't see and hear. The Bible, full of people seeing and hearing things other people don't see and hear. Also, Once Upon a Time, the TV show, I may or may not, I watched the first 3 or 4 episodes. I may or may not have the interest in continuing it. Emma, sorry, there was a cow named Emma. On one of Adriel's, she has a bunch of her yelling about veganism in her most recent last 24 hours. And Emma has come up, both because Emma, Once Upon a Time, and Emma in one of the other movies, and I don't even remember. I didn't watch. I think it was like had July 15th is one of the significant dates of something that happens in it. But that's whatever. All the leading people. Brett fucking Cooper. Brett fucking Cooper. I don't know it. Like, I literally only have ever seen her kind of in people talking about her in this way, like, and responding to her. I don't think I've ever watched a video. Have we watched a video of her? If I have, we have. You know what I mean? But I do know somebody with that same name who I have an, unlisted conversation with.
Sat for an hour talking and writing things back and forth.
Called an out-of-touch, reefer madness, hysteric doctor. But this week, the New York Times published something very surprising. They essentially admitted that they underestimated the risks that legalizing cannabis would have.
Okay. So he's gonna probably cover this much better than I can, but like the amount that people under our current system with their current lives feel a need individually to numb out in one way or another. Alcohol is legal most places and causes so much domestic violence and crime and addiction and death and drinking and driving and a bunch of things that are parallel to drinking, right? Marijuana was illegal for my childhood and teen years and well into my adult years. And so many people who smoked it were hippies, yeah, and the equivalent, left-leaning people and people who don't give a fuck about the law, right? Once it became legal, more people, because it makes more sense financially, health-wise, socially, dry, like everything you can do while drunk or high on marijuana specifically, probably better than drunk for most people. What join it themselves, different, right? Whether they like the feeling of being drunk or high and where they are, but like socially, most people don't get in fights when they get stoned. Some people though do stab someone who brought them home from the dog park. Don't bring random women even home. And you know what I mean? She was the bear. You know what I mean? Like she was the problem in that one. Know what she didn't know? She was almost certainly never going to smoke pot again. One of the women who maybe I can find Anne, is Anne her name? Who has adopted 2 children, adopted her son, and then his sister was placed for adoption. I don't remember if infancy or at what age, but she brought in his sibling. And he did horrible things. She shared those horrible things. A part of her turning her back, which is probably her back on him, wasn't the horrible things, although she holds him accountable in ways that most mothers, most parents don't, while not disowning him. But the one thing she disowned him about was her ultimatum of you cannot smoke marijuana. not because nobody should ever smoke marijuana. That's not her ultimatum with anyone else, just with him, because it induces psychosis. It breaks his contact with reality and good and true and right. In my wording. That now there's an 18-fold increase, right? Because it's no longer illegal. It's cheaper. It's theoretically, it's safer, right? To go somewhere where it's regulated and comes in a pack in a package. Multiple probably around here somewhere. Probably empty, most of them. Like liquor stores have been regulated, and they used to be only government owned in Canada, and then have been privatized in BC. There's more government owned than in Alberta. Actually, I don't know. They're back and forth in Alberta. I haven't lived there in years, and I moved right around the drinking ages. I had my 18th birthday in Alberta and then my 19th birthday in BC, both of which are the drinking ages, and that was when I moved. Whether so many things. The amount that we have tried, humanity, to vilify marijuana, and that doesn't mean it's safe and has zero nefarious socially, financially, all of those things. But we've tried to vilify it, tried to make it worse than alcohol, worse, bad, reefer madness. And the math doesn't math. The science doesn't add up. It is one of the safest, and it's still not safe. Under capitalism, there are many people alive because other people have access to gardening and not other things. And some people absolutely shouldn't touch it. That doesn't mean it should be illegal for everyone. In no way is Dr. Joseph going to make that argument. There's another one that I just clicked on. The other one I was going to watch, and we might watch, is on celebrities taking drugs, and Heath Ledger was in the screenshot. Starts with Kanye West. Why can't I say his name? Is that right? Kanye. There we go.
On the US population. Because in their article, they reported that the use of cannabis has increased by a factor of 18 since the early 90s, and that the strength of the cannabis is driving cannabis-induced illness, including psychosis and schizophrenia. And this story essentially exploded online, especially over on X, with many people coming forward sharing how cannabis-induced psychosis had either destroyed their lives or the lives of someone that they cared about. And this included one very well-known political commentator and actress, Brett Cooper, who had this to share. My mom and I have been told that my brother's psychosis, now full-blown diagnosed schizophrenia, is most likely drug-induced from his years of smoking weed. This drug isn't harmless no matter what our culture and screaming people in the comments tried to tell us. Well, this was viewed over 4 million times. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to explore how the growing use of cannabis and the potency of cannabis is leading to an epidemic of drug-induced schizophrenia and bipolar diagnoses in the US. And we're going to do this by exploring what happened to Brett Cooper's brother.
And I grieved my brother Reed because he's nowhere near the
times. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to explore how the growing use of cannabis and the potency of cannabis is leading to an epidemic of drug-induced schizophrenia and bipolar diagnoses in the US. And we're going to do this by exploring what happened to Brett Cooper's brother.
And I grieved my brother Reed.
Diagnosis versus treatment and all of it. As I wrote down because I wanted to hear what his thesis was of what the video was about. I didn't quite register it the first time. How much the placebo of not smoking pot in our current capitalist world is drinking, is doing tobacco, is having a fuck ton of energy drinks or caffeine, is doing a different addiction that is legal. Some of them I just mentioned are legal for children. Scrolling on your phone, buying piles of gold to hoard, whatever your addiction is. the amount that the psychiatry, the psych units don't deal with drug-induced psychosis. They don't seem to be able to distinguish, oh, you had a night out with friends and something happened? What happens? What's the time period? Are you going to go back to normal? Are you going to come down? Like, they're just drugging you up with new drug cocktails, seeing what happens. Let's do it. Not dealing with taking people who are on ADD meds that are addictive, for lack of a better term. You need to taper off of them, and they just take people off of them and then expect them to obey and behave. One of the other ones I just watched, both on the delusion of our collective delusion around pedophilia and the Epstein files, and it was about an author who wrote a book and should be in prison under this person's we've covered her channel before. I really like her content, but she has a lot of delusions around what's going to actually keep children safe versus her feelings. And so do most people. Like, they don't want to think these things are happening, so therefore they're like literally just la 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 la, like it's, and that's not what she's doing. She's kind of doing the exact opposite. But it basically ends up being the same thing in our current world of, right, Noah, writing a book isn't the same thing as doing it to a child. Having material where you're fantasizing about a child isn't the same as hurting a child. And to not be able to distinguish between those two things is a fucking problem in our entire criminal justice, all of it. Because Epstein Island child-eating billionaires own everything. And what was her other one on? Her other was that one that I watched? Oh, where a 3-year-old got suspended from daycare for eloping, for leaving from the gate and running out into traffic. And then they left the 3-year-old basically where they could leave again if they wanted to, as punishment while the mom was coming to pick her up. And the mom was like, am I crazy? How can a kid get this? All kinds of crazy. That's what our crazy fucking crazy species does. We blame 3-year-olds for grown-ass business decisions. Because your money, your finances, your feelings wrapped up in your 3-year-old. I have to find that part of that one. Because, dear God. Well, it's the text at the end about a 3-year-old doing it to be funny. Even if that's completely true. 3-year-olds find so many things funny. That's why you don't react, because you don't want to encourage them, and it's so hard not to, because they're hilarious. You know what I mean? Running out into traffic isn't hilarious. That is terrifying. And it's why you don't have a gate open that they can run through. To blame a child for grown-ass adult decisions and to not know who and what our brains are collectively, and the people in charge of them, Dr. Joseph here, one of the best ones, from my opinion, still went through the Yahoo fucking crazy medical system that made him into a psychiatrist, a delusional as fuck profession that thinks it can be in charge of a mind, in charge of expertise on the mind, without ever having experienced psychosis or delusion. Not even a bad drug trip. High stress under medicine and the ableism.
Because he's nowhere near the person that I grew up with.
Rita's her older brother that developed cannabis-induced psychosis.
I don't know if he ever will be. Like, I was sitting with him last week at visitation hours at his psych hospital.
Reed's 17-year-old twin brother died exactly a week after their 17th birthday. Barely 17. His other half died. I don't know if they were identical to, I don't know. Ashton Kutcher and his brother are identical twins, but his brother has cerebral palsy. Actually, I don't know if they're. I might be assuming they're identical, but I think they are. He's not the brother I grew up with. No. Why the fuck would he be? He's been through life under disgusting capitalism that you seem to be all up in.
I see it in his eyes, and he has this he has a twinkle that he's always had, and he's very smirky. He's always been very mischievous. Everybody loves him. Like even just sitting in the little cafeteria and watching nurses and people walk by and they're all like, "Oh, Reed sister, we love Reed." But there's a lot of him that's gone.
Okay, so Brett was 6 when they were 17. They also, so they were born in 1990, and go back one. Their dad died when they were 5 of brain cancer. And then his dad's dead. He has some other man, right? And all the trauma. And was smoking pot. And we're blaming it on just the pot and not the brain cancer or heart attack of a 17-year-old.
For the first time in modern history, college students.
So what does she mean by that? Well, so there's 2 things that you need to be aware of. The first is that when you have a drug-induced psychosis from schizophrenia, the way to think about it is not like, oh, the drug is making them psychotic, because anyone who's ever seen this before knows that the psychosis lasts long after the drug is out of the body for many people. That drug-induced psychosis is actually neurological damage. So the reason why, most people are smoking and giggling and having a good time, and then you get that one person who becomes super paranoid and psychotic, the people smoking and giggling and having a good time, they're not getting harmed by it. But the guy that becomes really paranoid.
I need to ask Dr. Joseph, have you ever smoked pot? And have you ever smoked pot with people? Because the people I know who have smoked pot and get really bad paranoia never touch it again. Some people get paranoia some of the time. It both helps and hurts my anxiety. But that part is the brain damage, and then they just keep seeking that bad feeling. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense.
Paranoid, that's neurological damage, and that lingers afterwards. And so when she says her brother isn't there anymore, well, some of that is likely true, because if he's hurt his brain, he's not quite the same person anymore. Now, the other thing that she's going to talk about shortly is the effect that antipsychotic medications can have on people.
I'm watching Fringe. I mistakenly misunderstood that Joshua Jackson's in all of them. He's in the pilot. It's his dad that is some kind of weird scientist locked in a psych ward. Only his family member can visit him. Joshua Jackson, whatever his actual name is, and that has a his partner is Olivia, FBI agent Olivia. What was my point? Oh, that his dad is at one point they're sitting at dinner in a cafe and he's taking drugs. He's like, "Dad, you're not on anything," which is weird, having been in a psych ward for so long, where everyone's on something at the doctor's insistence. And so they can feel useful. You know what I mean? Take you off of whatever you were on before, fuck with your brain and biology and chemistry. Because they're the god. I fucking can't with the entire fake as fuck psychiatry. Oh, sorry, that he's both. What does Joshua Jackson say? Something along the lines, if you're self-medicating and making it yourself. Very few people would be able to. I mean, your own supply. That's anyone making drugs might be using their own supply, which is basically doing that. But this is literally, he's like, yeah, no, my brain's off balance. I got to make things to put them in balance. Chemicals don't put your brain in balance. That's not how our brains work. Us, kindergartners in lab coats. can't understand the complexity of a single human brain, let alone all of our human brains, and what a drug, let alone the combination of capitalism and drugs and stress and the cornucopia of drugs we've all pissed down the toilet are doing to all of us.
And people who develop drug-induced schizophrenia often get put on these meds.
He doesn't speak anymore. Sometime in the last 3 years, he stopped speaking. So when he's out of the hospital and he has his phone, we will communicate through text, or he'll write something in his notes app and show me. In the hospital, he doesn't have his phone, especially in an involuntary hold. So he has a little notepad. And so we, sat for an hour talking and writing things back and forth. But I've had to, I think, let go of the hope that he'll be who I knew as a kid. I don't think that's fully gone. There's always part of me that's like, what if? If he did psychedelics, if he woke up one day and said, I'm going to change my diet, I'm going to change my lifestyle.
This is what happens to your
I'm sorry, you cunt of a human. The ableism of like, it's all on him. I mean, like, if he hadn't done the thing that broke his brain, you mean have the brain that broke on drugs? If he changed his diet and thought positively, doesn't he know that gratitude is healing, Reed? He lost his dad and brother. You were 6 and lost one brother who you had a literal pair of. Whatever, half of one of them. I'm sad. I'm going to make it my whole personality. But my brother, co-opt his story.
People like my brother up to fail.
So quickly on that, if you've had a drug-induced psychosis or that's led to schizophrenia, psychedelics is a bad idea. That's not going to work. And also, while dietary changes can help, even things like the ketogenic diet, they're mainly essentially putting your body in a healthier place to heal. The only thing that I've seen help people who have had drug-induced psychosis is long periods of sobriety and time. Now, oftentimes I've seen people take 1 to 2 years.
Sobriety and time, i.e. don't go near the thing that broke your brain that time when you got uber crazy on it, right? Which you should want to stay away from if it was your one and only experience. But if you've been smoking pot safely and then all of a sudden had a one-off, why is that the one-off, right? You might have some questions around that. And so should psychiatry, that they're, and I don't mean Dr. Joseph, I mean the rest of them, are like, right, we're just going to throw new drugs at it, not give time and healing. Here's a swamp of pharmaceuticals that I'm an expert and I'm telling you, even though I've done no research on what this does in your body or anybody's, but gee, I like my vacation. And did I tell you I went to med school? Look on my wall. Delusional as fuck.
After having like a drug-induced bipolar or schizophrenia, for them to fully recover, for the paranoia and the irritability and the mood problems to kind of die down, which kind of tracks with what happens if you've had like a traumatic brain injury, which I believe that's what's happening with this high potency cannabis.
And it's this endless cycle where without his meds, he's a danger to society. But with the meds, they're debilitating. And he's so unhappy. And they pump him, through. It's so dehumanizing.
One thing that is really unique about a cannabis-induced schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, from clinical experience, there's just something about this type of psychosis that makes people very paranoid and delusional and aggressive. And that's what we saw with Bryn Spiescher, the California woman who had never had a history of mental health problems. She smoked some cannabis with her boyfriend, and in a drug-induced psychosis, she stabbed him to death. Now, because this flavor of
am mentioning I'm pretty sure that's the case, and I'm pretty sure they weren't boyfriend and girlfriend. It was like literally the second time they met at the dog park. They might have been on a date. Maybe.
Bipolar and schizophrenia is so dangerous. Oftentimes, many of these patients end up involuntarily hospitalized in institutions and on loads of antipsychotic medications to control their aggression.
Or he's like pinned down and injected.
That's the involuntary use of medications. Usually it's an antipsychotic and a strong sedative like Ativan when these patients are bouncing off the walls, harming other patients in the facility and things like that.
And they cause, paralysis and tremors and, whatever it may be. Some of them.
We take people who are paranoid, lock them in a space they don't want to be in, inject them with something, and put them with other people who have contradicting crazy with the doctors in white coats and the nurses. And the patients and nurses and doctors experience violence. And they drug them to fucking high heavens. Like, time and healing, nature, reality, a soft room they can't hurt themselves in and can't be near people when they're everyone. Solutions that actually fucking work. And not our delusional fuckery.
Really scary, had cardiac effects with, our history was so scary. And nobody ever talks about diet or lifestyle or other options. He was in an involuntary hold in Idaho for almost 3 years. I didn't see him for 3 years.
Involuntary in Idaho for 3 years. I didn't see him for 3 years. I have no idea. Was he there in college? Why wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, again, that we don't look at people as people. All you have to do is label someone crazy, criminal, anything that we look at people as dehumanizing, and you can do absolutely fucking anything you want to them. And the rest of the population is just like, well, they wouldn't have done the horrible thing if you weren't a horrible person. And I can't be a horrible person, and what you're claiming would make me a horrible person for participating in that. Yeah. We're just gonna have a brief intermission. I had to play an April Fool's Day prank on my kid. So, all right, we're back.
He stopped speaking somewhere in there, which I don't blame him. These places are they're not like pretty rehab places.
So when people stop speaking, oftentimes that's a sign of something we call catatonia. Now, catatonia often is you stop really engaging with the outside world. And while this can happen with severe depression and schizophrenia on its own, it also often happens with extremely high doses of antipsychotic medications, which it sounds like may have been something going on with Brett's brother if his behavior was so out of control that he needed to be in an involuntary hold for 3 years. And so part of what's going on may also be very large doses of antipsychotic.
There aren't places like that. There isn't a place where he can go, like live safely in like a nice assisted living rehab. If there is, somebody should let me know.
And she's right. You know, we don't have a good system anywhere in the world, to my knowledge, that actually looks after people who have had drug-induced psychosis that looks like bipolar or schizophrenia. Because again, the treatment is essentially safety and monitoring. So when this happens to someone, you need to get them into a facility where they can't elope, where they can't harm other people, and you essentially need to wait for their brain to heal. And yes, you do need to use medications sometimes to keep their behavior under control. But what is happening right now is someone will have one of these psychoses and they just essentially go to the hospital and they just nuke them with psychiatric.
I can't. The amount under the DSM-5 where paranoia, seeing things, hearing things, right, like are part of the criteria. And then someone has a drug and they experience a psychotic episode, which is what you're kind of doing when you're taking, you know what I mean? A bit of it, at least, right? Mushrooms and acid and stuff. And the people who are in charge of our mental health and see those people and people who just had concussions and don't speak English, in my experience in the hospital, for just that 3 weeks. And what the F are these people doing here who should be in the medical system elsewhere for concussions? Not even in the medical and not speak, like what are you doing? And then locking people up together who have varying degrees of reality with very little supervision, except for some people who've been a problem in the past and they have somebody there who isn't going to intervene at all if they get violent. Like, witnessing the violence. And the lockdown that happens on all the patients and not the nursing or doctors, who are the ones who are, you know what I mean, who should be responsible for the behavior of the other patients and locking them in together. What people don't do and what we're supposed to do is join them in their fucking reality. Have you been with somebody on a bad trip? Whether it lasts 20 minutes or 15 days, I don't know. I've only done the small version. People being drunk and high and having a bad time and being looked after and then turning out okay, partly because they have people looking after them who know when to get medical advice, but the medical people don't know when it's not their fucking job. When, right, doing fuck all is better. Not injecting them, not holding them down, not locking them away against their will. Where are they in their virtual reality goggles and how do we reach them? Is very different than, hey, I've arrived in a white coat, listen to my authority. Is there anything in the DSM-5 that says they're going to listen to your authority when they're in a fucking crazy state? No, because the people in charge of crazy are fucking crazy. He's one of the sanest and he left to go be an influencer. This is the sanest area to do that in. Unlike everyone else who's costing their career by becoming an influencer, his career was never, from Freud onward, all made up bullshit.
Medications and antipsychotics, and they essentially leave them on the medications for a long time. And oftentimes they don't tell the person that the cannabis is really the main driving factor of the psychosis. And so that person will keep on using it, essentially harming their brain again and again and again. This is
Don't give especially if, right, like if you've never smoked pot and you smoke pot and you have a drug-induced, right, you're gonna know what fucking caused it. Oh, I got really paranoid, I'm never touching that again. I saw crazy things, I stabbed someone, never touching it again. You don't need a mom to give you an ultimatum, right? Nope. Other people who may have smoked it for years and years and then develop a problem, which is what he's kind of talking about, which is why I'm like, okay, I don't know, because There's other things people develop. It wasn't him, right? It was someone else talking about the B12 and people showing up deeply in pain. He's like, listen, keep smoking. Just take the B12. Just take that. No. The amount we don't understand the human brain and we're all in collective fucking delusion. How many people are on pharmaceuticals that are literally pissing down and feeding to fish that we're eating? A cornucopia when we don't understand a single one, let alone all of them all at once. We take people who smoked something, who knows what was in it, who knows whether it was actually just marijuana, right? Where did they get it from? Who knows? It's a drug, bad people. How long is their brain going to be like this? They don't even tell them, right? Because you know what? They don't know. They don't know. A friend of this channel got diagnosed on this not this channel, one of my channels, they're all collectively conglomerated in my head, with the nervous system disorder that this pharmaceutical drugs for your brain give you, that psychiatrists don't seem to fucking click into, and doctors who prescribe these and aren't psychiatrists, and all of them aren't seeing the negative side effects, horrific side effects on your brain and life that these drugs can have. They're just like, well, this is all I gotta give you. What do you want? Acknowledgement of actual reality.
More brain damage that looks like schizophrenia, and they essentially stay on antipsychotic medications. But the best thing for these folks is essentially sobriety, very judicious short-term use of antipsychotics to control the aggression, supervision if they're really out of control, and then time, because you need time. You need 1 to 2 years to recover from something like this. And then another interesting thing, there is a whole YouTube page on this. It's called Every Brain Matters with Aubrey Adams, where it's essentially multiple long-form interviews with people who have recovered from drug-induced psychosis caused by schizophrenia. This is not a rare problem. This is happening a lot.
If your resume looks like this, you're not getting hired.
Drug-induced psychosis caused by schizophrenia, not schizophrenia caused by drug-induced psychosis. Those are deeply not the same things. Brett Cooper, I don't know, right? What she's saying, she lost her brother. He's not the same. All the things about psychiatry that I agree with. Pot didn't cause schizophrenia. Pot in people with schizophrenia can cause issues that are different from regular ass population, that we don't know how to distinguish regular ass population from the DSM-5 boxes, mainly because they're like, we put you in a box. Don't know another schizophrenic and have an opinion on what's reality and not reality. Let's just drug you so you don't see and hear things that I can't see and hear and make me uncomfortable. What if what they're seeing is reality and you can't see it? Once upon a time, that little boy is in reality. He's living in a tiny town where all the people are storybook characters so very clearly, and all of them are like, that's crazy. Crazy. Well, he's going to therapy and talking to Jiminy Cricket, right? And like, yeah, no, he's not angry about that particularly. He is very angry about his mother, who doesn't love him, Regina, because she doesn't. She's a horrible mother. And his birth mom, Emma, who's also a horrible mom because she's, you know, like the whole story. He's the most sane. Emma second so, because she's the one who's like, you know what? Weirder things have happened. Faster than the people who are literally living the storybook life. That people can't see the signs and symbols and need to make me crazy for them, especially psychiatry. But it's like, right, where's the crazy? Well, we can't point to it and we can't tell you and we can't, but you should take these drugs. Should I? What? Why? What scientific paper says that the thing you've diagnosed me with should take these drugs when it says the exact fucking opposite? Well, I went to medical school and useless as fuck. Yeah, that was a lot of wasted money. You should have literally anything.
Or you can't leave. where you have no rights. And so I don't blame them for shutting down. But you're put on these meds because you can't function without them. And you're given the crappiest food. And I was so angry just like last month that I'm his guardian, by the way. That was another thing we dealt with last year of we had to fight for so many years, my mom did, to get information about him. I mean, he would be arrested, taken to hospitals. We have no idea where he is. He would be switched from doctor to doctor to doctor, literally like trying to chase him down.
Now, for anyone that's gone through this or a family member that's gone through this, they know the system is essentially, you know, they have a drug-induced psychosis. They go to the hospital for 1 week to 2 weeks. That's pretty much all insurance covers. And then they get kicked out. You know, they've had brain damage essentially. So they have these residual symptoms afterwards of paranoia and psychosis. There's very little monitoring. The outpatient psychiatrist only sees them.
Jubilee's non-psychiatric opinion. Nick Reiner was being moved from one drug to another drug at his parents and doctors and maybe his bequest. He was not happy and was taken to a Hollywood party where he was expected to perform, I don't know what fucking what, but everyone's like, he's not performing happy guest. Invited to a Conan O'Brien party that we're all super happy to be at and invited every year. And the Reiners didn't stay home with him, didn't go by themselves. They brought him, put him under that extreme amount of stress so they could be at a party, and they paid the ultimate price because he had a psychotic episode, murdered his parents. Is still possibly in a psychotic episode. The people who are in charge of our brains are like, that's not what psychosis looks like because he was able to walk into a 7-Eleven. Could you not walk into a 7-Eleven with VR glasses on? You could, right? You could bump into things. But you could walk into a 7-Eleven, right? It wouldn't stop you. You can do things like I fucking can't. AI psychosis, drug-induced psychosis, these are things people can share their stories about. Actual experts who've been through it. Not the fake as fuck pretend experts in white coats, right? The man who, when I was super pregnant, was like, I've delivered 200 babies. I'm like, no, the fuck you haven't. You haven't delivered, unless I'm really not understanding your anatomy. Not a single fucking one, sir. Not a single one. He's like, I've given birth to 200 babies. I think that he didn't say delivered. He said given birth to. And I was like, no, you have not. Neither have I, still pregnant. After, in a few days, I can say 1. You'll still be at 0. And he had attended that many births. I hadn't, right? Like, yep, that's your expertise. You're not listening to the person in front of you. You're not listening to the doctor, my neurosurgeon, who said, yep, I'm allowed to have a baby at home. He wouldn't suggest his own daughter does that. He wouldn't suggest anyone does that. So he's not going to say, yep, she should. But he has no medical reason to not allow me to. And they're like, but purple pushing. And there's no increased chance in my intracranial pressure than yours, sir. Except that I'm pregnant, not because of the brain tumors. You're not listening to the literal fucking expert who's a doctor, because he's not an expert on pregnancy. You're not listening to me and my body as an expert. None of it. Time and time again. My most recent that I've shared about the MRIs and them just like just bureaucratic bullshit that kills people. In my case, I'm like, I just long grow until Schrodinger's tumors until I find out how much they've grown in a year. But like my bottom fucking medical opinion of our medical system just like digs deeper. I'm like, yeah, no, of course they didn't call. Of course they didn't know. 3 days. I was like, 3 days has to be good enough. I used to get my MRIs before I was with BC Cancer. I used to get them at VGH, and I'm pretty sure I did get the MRI on the same day I met with the doctor who cut into my brain. Like later on, after he'd already cut into my brain, it was like MRI and then meet with him to find. And now that COVID and you meet with people over the phone, it's like you need they need 3 weeks to go through the gadolinium. That he literally doesn't look at it till like 5, whatever. They don't know. They don't know their own bullshit. And then you have to advocate as a patient or a parent of a patient. And then that gets their ego all up in a bunch, especially when you don't know how to do it in a way that's like, so Not to hurt your ego and your small fucking micro penis, but
once every couple months. And because of that, the only thing that they do is they just like nuke them with antipsychotic medications indefinitely. Where really, again, like I said, this person needs supervision in a controlled environment. They also need help coming off the medications once that like the initial worst part of the drug-induced psychosis is there, so they can kind of readapt to life in an undrugged state. Obviously, that hasn't happened in Brett's case, and so Brett's brother's case. So there was just this cycle where he was just going in and out of the hospital, essentially not getting the care that he needed.
To get information, not in like a we need you back, but of like how could we help you? We don't even know where you are. And so we finally were approved guardianship, and Reed knows, and I think he was happy that it was me. But he trusts me a lot, which I'm really grateful for. But though he was released from this involuntary hold, and he had a halfway house and seemed to be doing better. But, I was talking with my mom, and it was in Idaho, it was in Boise. He only got to Tennessee recently. It was a whole other situation. He kind of accidentally got here. I kind of think maybe it was a God thing, because my mom and I had been talking. It's like, it'd be really great if he could get close to you. And he just went missing one day and showed up in Tennessee. So, worked out. But the point being, he was there for 3 years. He stopped speaking.
Crazy or not, witches are born on specific dates.
We know exactly when witches are born.
And there were no changes to his diet. He was fed the worst food. His hospital food. I was in visiting hours last week, and we were given like crappy cartons of milk and like Teddy Grahams.
Again, this is not what someone needs when they're recovering from drug-induced brain damage. They need
I hate hospital food. It's one of like my biggest in the hospital for every surgery, pregnancy, all of it. That it comes, it's not hot, that it's cooked, all of it, great, happy to eat. Horrible food, nutrition-wise, taste-wise, it is like the worst of the worst. For anyone, someone who just gave birth, someone experiencing surgery, someone who's chronically ill, someone who's got cancer, why is it the least nutritional food? Like in hospitals, in prisons, I get it, you're trying to punish them. In schools and hospitals, the foundation of our health, food. I'm like, what? I just had brain surgery. Why are you feeding me this crap? I had to leave at one point. No, I was in the psych ward. Like I had a pass to go to A&W to buy a burger, because I literally was like, I cannot eat a bite of this food. And mostly I ate the food that was there because I didn't have to cook it. And it was one of the like people walking out my front door and no cooking or cleaning. What Jubilee asked for, not in the space I asked for it. Wanted a village, right? Got a different kind of village. We need actual healing, like everyone, to be in a healing center with nature and good food, participating in that system, not on slavery and cooperative and, what we're going to do when anyone that joins me.
full-on sobriety. They need very short-term use of antipsychotics and sedatives to get them through the worst aggressive and paranoid states. And then they need a drug taper. And then essentially all of the things that support good physical health, good food, movement, sleep, companionship, exercise, things like that. You want to get them physically strong, and that gives their brain the best chance of recovery.
And all these studies are coming out about, the effects of carbs and sugar on the brain and this has been happening for years of, keto diets being instrumental in keeping schizophrenia at bay. And we have people that have...
While this is true, I would not be overly hopeful that this would make a difference in a case like this. I think it's more helpful in cases where there is a lot of metabolic problems in the person, if they're overweight or they have diabetes, and if they don't have a history suggesting that the reason for the psychosis is actually brain injury from a drug. But it can still help, obviously improving diet and all of that can help as well.
Literally removed the voices from their brains, have been able to now, they live totally normal lives, are in relationships, are getting married by living a very, very strict lifestyle and diet. And no doctor has encouraged that. And it's such a missed opportunity. It's like he was there for 3 years and he came out worse.
Yeah, these inpatient facilities, they're very poorly staffed.
So the episode that had me watch Fringe, I don't remember which one it was. But as Joshua Jackson in it, so that should narrow it down. About the time dome and the man named Raymond, whose wife is the genius scientist, but she has Alzheimer's, and so he uses her work to create a time machine, and it hurts everyone, and she ends up blacking out that when she comes to lucidity, blacking out the information so he can't redo what he was nearly certainly going to redo, so he can have time with his wife, being a selfish asshole, even though she's like, right, don't do this. How you can live your life is by going on and living your life, not hurting everyone by getting a few lucid moments with me. The amount that people could or would do for their health or a loved one's health versus what they could or should do, very different, depending on your knowledge, your resources, your all of that. What was that point? There was a point. What was the point of what I was bringing up, Fringe? And I don't remember what it was.
3 years and he came out worse.
Yeah, these inpatient facilities.
I mean, they're literally not designed. They're if it's a for-profit motive, and it is, they're there to keep you unwell, so they can keep you on pharmaceuticals and keep you there. The doctor can keep you there so that you can feel like he's doing his job, right? Feel like he's doing good. He didn't give you Taradekinesia. He didn't give you no reason to live. Didn't, right? No, none of that. He's just a savior. The delusion around medicine, around health, and how much medicine does not equal health, but we could have health, and how much it's tied to nutrition, yet our ableism around it of like, well, these people were able, that Helen Keller was one of the things this podcast didn't talk about. It was also a video I was watching before this. Helen Keller, someone talking about how she is a fraud. Not that she wasn't blind and deaf. She was those things. She was also those things at 18 months, which is not newborn. And the video talks about basically how her, I don't remember her name, Sullivan, the miracle worker, the one who taught her, and her husband were the ones who wrote the books, and they got 11-year-old her to plagiarize and give it to a professor. And what she was actually able to do was highly impressive. That she was used by Sullivan to showcase that she needed her to be even more hyperbolically disabled porn, right? Makes it a lie. Makes it both something not reproducible and like all of what we do around disability and fake as fuck medicine and the pretense of if you did nothing, would it be better than making somebody swallow pills or with them wanting to and swallowing them? Placebo effect versus literal, like nothing, which isn't even placebo effect. You have to take something for placebo effect.
They're very poorly staffed. And if you think about it, all of the expensive stuff there, where it would be like, psychotherapy, food, having someone get them to move their body and exercise, having a facility where there's outdoor space and there's green spaces, having people who could watch them one-on-one so they can have a bit more, movement, that all costs money. And so what happens is it gets reduced down into what's like really cheap. And so generally they're just kind of in locked units and the doctor will see them for like 2 minutes and, change their meds. And there's like a drawing class or like an art class or a group circle. They're kind of more places to put people on medications and sequester them from society than really engage in a rehabilitative process, because that's much more expensive.
Man.
And now we're back to square one, and it's this awful cycle of, again, of course he's getting worse. Like you go into these places, I've been visiting him for years at various different hospitals. It's awful. It's prison. It's maximum security. Of like, in order to go back and visit him, I go through like mazes of hallways and doors and keys and whatever, and I can't even bring him like socks. Like, you're not allowed to bring anything in because they could harm themselves. Like, it's
of the Siegel Center where I was is a beautiful architecture, beautiful center. As far as those things go, more security to get out, like on the 7th floor, on whatever floor you're on, you get a buzz to get into the floor or out onto the elevator, then you're good. Once you're in the elevator, you don't get buzzed anymore else, unless it's after hours and you get buzzed into the building. What's the point? Then the 3-year-old in daycare who got in trouble because she planned the escape, and then they put her where she could, anyone could plan an escape. After she'd already escaped and had suspended her for 2 days. Grown-ass adults in psychiatric wards where they're put there voluntarily and involuntarily, who just have to lie to doctors who are literally delusional in their own expertise. They're just, are you endangered? You want to go for a walk? Are you going to kill yourself while you're out? They don't ask it quite like that, but they might as well, which is the least fucking useful. Well, I wasn't gonna, but now that you put the thought in my head, all I have to do is lie? Like, what fucking world do we live in where we treat 3-year-olds, planning criminals, and grown-ass adults, right? We just have to drug them with some booty juice, and then they'll get less angry. Would you get less angry if someone shoved a needle in your fucking ass? How about they get less angry with time? Not psychotics, antipsychotics, which are psychotic. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Take this, it'll help you feel better. If you don't have a relationship with them for them to trust you to take it, yeah, you and every other doctor in all of medicine have broken that. Yep. And I don't mean Dr. Joseph, I mean psychiatry.
like, again, I look at him, I'm like, no wonder you stopped speaking. But what other option is there? And we've brought him home. He's lived with me. He's lived with my mom. He's lived on the farm. He's tried everything. And it's just a constant cycle of meds, off meds, jail, hospital, out, meds.
And you see, this is how, and I know Brett's brother was homeless, but this is how homelessness happens a lot of the time. You have essentially normal people who get caught up in using drugs and they damage their brains. And I mean, how much agency do you have once you have a severe brain injury from medications? It's very hard to recognize that the things that you're doing are self-destructive, and then you just get stuck in this cycle, and eventually you end up on the streets.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform. Describe what you want.
Many people die.
Off meds. And I don't know if that'll, no idea if that'll change. But you kind of have to find peace with the fact that maybe that's just, again, going back to like, this is the reality.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop that there, because that is a pretty chilling account on what it's like to watch someone descend into a drug-induced psychosis. And I want to spend just a little bit of time now talking about how big of a deal this is right now. And so the first thing that I want to talk about is that most people who think that cannabis is benign, they're stuck in the 70s. They still think we're talking about the weed back then that was 3% THC.
No, I don't think we're talking about that weed. You know why? Because I didn't smoke pot until the mid to late 90s when I was a teenager, right? And that was before I was born. So no, because my dad smoking a pot at his dad's funeral and not being able to move his body. Because the stuff was high potency, and to me it's normal potency, right? It's right, that's going from 20% or 18, 19% when I was a teenager to now a high 20%. Isn't that difference in the high in the body and the, like, it's not all of the other chemicals, every other chemical, literally anesthesia, gadolinium, any of the things that you inject or have me take orally that have an effect, either hypo or hyper in my body for autism, and will not be listened to. I know when I go for my next brain surgery, I'm gonna, maybe they'll surprise me. They will not surprise me. They'll surprise me in so many myriad of ways. One of which will be if they listen to me and keep me on steroids. Right? No, we need to taper me off of steroids while I'm at home for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Oh, we don't do that, right? We do that with me. With me, we do that because I don't like my brain swelling. I don't like to go nonverbal and get brain damage. I'm crazy like that. How many times have you been through my brain having brain surgery? This will be my third.
You know, if you look at the reporting from the New York Times, here's what they say. In 1995, marijuana seized by the DEA was around 4% THC concentration. Today, there are marijuana products with 90% or more. I mean, most people that go into dispensaries will see that the buds are around 30% and the concentrates are 90% or more. So this is a huge increase. And a lot of this increase happened recently. This is an article here from Freeman that just shows, you know, the levels of cannabis here, you know, in the 70s. It's like some of this is sub 2%, you know, it's around.
So fentanyl is an opioid that is very concentrated. They use it in medicine, and it's a street drug that is highly deadly if you don't have Narcan, etc. People will get used to a certain amount of fentanyl, get clean, then go relapse and take a drug that they think their body can handle, and they die because their body can't handle it. You know what that doesn't happen with pot? You just kill other people because you go crazy. I do get withdrawal if I go off of pot completely. My body experiences it until it doesn't. What I don't get though is if I literally take any pot with any THC, any CBD in it, doesn't matter the concentration, I don't go through withdrawal. Does that mean it's placebo? Maybe. You know when I didn't go through withdrawal? When I was in the psych ward. Even though I was definitely going, like 100% went from smoking to zero. Like with no choice. Did not experience withdrawal, did not experience night sweats, did not experience any of my normal things that happened.
3%. And then as we go into like the 90s, it starts to increase to around 5%. And then into the 2000s, like all of a sudden, we're up here at around the 10% mark. And then it goes up from there to 14% in 2015. Now, again, you know, right now it's essentially doubled. Most of the bud in the dispensaries is around 30% now. So we have this just hockey stick increase in THC concentration.
They put me in the psych ward, diagnosed with delusional disorder. Well, there met a NHL player's roommate, family member, who was in the psych ward with me. And we watched them play in the NHL. Like, it was Sam Steele. His brother died in Canmore of a heart attack after playing hockey when he was, I'm going to go with around 17. I think he was like 19 or so. They had a hockey game on February 14th. There might have been 13th. I might have that one wrong. I feel like it was the 14th. In his memory, I was thinking about that when he just said fucking hockey stick. Just so we're, you know, hockeying.
Which is driving the psychosis. Now, how much psychosis is this driving? Well, I wanted to show you this study that was done in 2015 where they looked at 410 patients, and they classified them as to whether they were smoking low potency cannabis, which was hash, which was sub 5%, and then, you know, high potency cannabis skunk, which was around 15%. And they wanted to measure the incidence of psychosis in these two groups. Now, just to have a baseline for you guys, the background rate of just schizophrenia in the general population is around 1%, so 1 out of 100. When they looked at the individuals who were smoking the 5% or less cannabis every day, the hash, there was essentially no change. There was no increase in psychosis risk. But when they looked at the people smoking the skunk, the 15% cannabis, it went up to, there was a 5.4% increase in psychosis. They essentially 5x'd it. So instead of, 1 in 100, you're now 1 in 20 if you are using high potency cannabis. Now, again, that's 15%. This isn't even the 30% that we see most people smoking like here in the US right now. And this is not even taking into account that many people are using high potency like concentrates and things like that, and things like Delta 9, which is synthetic cannabis, which is even worse. Now, the next thing that I have to mention that's going to be surprising to a lot of people is that cannabis is uniquely harmful amongst all drugs in causing brain damage that looks like schizophrenia and bipolar. And we've got this study here. This is American Journal of Psychiatry, STASA, from 2018, where they looked at every person in Denmark diagnosed with a substance-induced psychosis, and they looked at how many of them went on to develop schizophrenia. And here's what they found. What they found was that if you had a cannabis-induced psychosis, 47% of them later went on to develop schizophrenia or bipolar, and over 40% developed schizophrenia alone. And this is what you're seeing here on this graph, this blue line that shows the years since they had their substance-induced psychosis, so essentially their initial brain injury from the drug. It goes 5, 10, 15, 20, and you can just see this sort of rise up. This is a huge amount. So if you have a drug-induced psychosis from cannabis, you only have a 50% chance of developing schizophrenia. You need to stop immediately from cannabis, rise up. This is a huge 10, 15, 20.
I was trying to see if alcohol was on here, and it is. It's the middle child. Sorry. Cannabis looks like it's a number 1. Alcohol is the red line here. In between the two is opioids. Thanks, Sackler family. And other mixed. Under it, I feel like is this one other mixed? No, what is this one? I'm reading it as the same line as two different ones. Does this one not have one down here? Whatever. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Not science.
And you can just see this sort of rise up. This is a huge amount. So if you have a drug-induced psychosis from cannabis, you only have a 50% chance of developing schizophrenia. You need to stop immediately and look after your brain.
That is not what? That's not how schizophrenia. What? Right. No, if brain damage equals schizophrenia, that's not what schizophrenia is. Again, psychiatry doesn't know what schizophrenia is. It's just like, see things, you're schizophrenic. See things over time without being on drugs, you're schizophrenic. Right, did everyone same cause, same outcome, same dragon? Can they all see the same one? The people experiencing what we've deemed of as mental illness are the experts in that mental illness, both during it and especially after, when they can like actually verbalize that experience more so. And actual loved ones and family members who care about you, but like that's ableist as fuck. And like some of us have family members, some of us don't, some of us lock us up in psych wards because we're inconvenient. Other people will go to the end of the world to find their family in jail and psych wards. They're purposefully there to save and take them out, and etc. We have the world we've co-created together, and we can co-create anything else. Literally anything else.
Now, this is the most surprising thing. They looked at all types of drug-induced psychoses, and cannabis was the most harmful amongst them all. That's all of these other lines that you see below. These are other drugs and how they lead people to developing a schizophrenia. These are things like opiates, cocaine, hallucinogens, alcohol, sedatives, amphetamines, and other drugs. So, yeah.
Why are hallucinogens not on the graph itself? It's in the legend and it's not on the graph. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all.
Things like meth and cocaine, things like LSD, they are less harmful than cannabis on the brain. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, the last thing that I want to bring up is we actually have pretty good evidence that the increase in the use of cannabis and also the THC content is leading to an epidemic of drug-induced psychosis and mania. And so let's check out this article quickly from Canadian Medical Journal that was published just 1 week ago. And here's what they found. They found that
it was February 2nd, which is Groundhog Day, and was somehow something. Did I watch Groundhog Day? No, I watched it, I think, right before Groundhog Day or something this year. The Time movies. What's my point about Groundhog? It was mentioned both, I think, by Adriel, possibly. We were watching something, and Groundhog Day was mentioned, and then it got mentioned, I feel like twice again. I don't remember. I can't keep track of these things. Someone should come help me save the world so we can keep better track.
there's actually an explosion in schizophrenia diagnoses based on your age cohort. And so if you go here, if you look at this here, everything is anchored around the birth cohort in 1975. And then we have these different sort of birth cohorts going up. And what you notice here is that these birth cohorts, the people born around 1985 to 1990, we start to see this big increase. The chance of developing a schizophrenia psychosis diagnosis goes up. So anyway, this blue line is psychosis not otherwise specified. The black line is psychotic disorders. The blue line here is schizophrenia spectrum disorders. These are all essentially proxies for developing an enduring psychotic condition. Now, to provide a little bit of context, the reason why this is starting to go up.
So right around 1980, it flipped to being more okay, cool. Guess when? Jubilee was born at Charles Camsell High School at 114. The date and location in Edmonton. No. Tornadoes between 80 and 82 and Canada.
Up here is it dovetails with when Canada starts to legalize cannabis. And so that happens at around 2000. And so if you're born in, here like 1990, you're essentially 10 when cannabis is legalized. At about 2015 in Canada, a lot of the regulations drop, and then shortly thereafter it becomes fully legal. And so these are the birth cohorts who are exposed to essentially the recreational cannabis market. And so what happens when cannabis becomes recreational? Well, you get a lot of marketing, they downplay the harms of it, and there's also huge investments in making
the different drug campaigns. Well, drugs themselves have undergone their own little evolution. Legally and illegally, made up pharmaceuticals, chemistry, playing Frankenstein. Point Jubilee. Drugs have been doing that. What else has been doing that, Jubilee? Because there was a what else?
Making it stronger and stronger and stronger. And so I think there's very good evidence that this hockey sticking,
something about, I think, just life getting more stressful. The pot got more strong at the same time. More people were born who are maybe more in touch with reality that you all call delusion and psychosis in your little white coats.
that is happening with the increase in schizophrenia. Why would there be this huge increase in schizophrenia if it's a genetic condition? No, there's something else going on, and it's likely cannabis. This is just something else I wanted to share. People in Canada use huge amounts of pot, probably the most in the world. So check this out. This is from the
So we could probably compare Canadians who have also free-ish healthcare to Americans who have really expensive healthcare and addiction services, and I wonder how we compare for schizophrenia in those same age groups. When it was legalized here and not there, and we've always had high levels, but they became higher after legalization. Higher, I don't know.
2023 Canadian Cannabis Survey. The proportion of respondents who reported using cannabis daily or almost daily has been stable at approximately 25% since 2018. Among youth, that's around 20%. This is madness.
So I'm looking up when it was actually legalized because I was pretty sure it was after Eric died. And I thought it was associated with his birthday. It's the day his birthday was the last day it was illegal because it was legalized on October 17th, which is my uncle's birthday, but 2018. 2018. So not even 10 years yet has it been legal in Canada.
This is absolutely insane. That's an insane amount of daily cannabis use. And so, again, with THC concentrations rising, I think it makes sense that a lot of them are developing these conditions. We also have some evidence from Denmark as well. Now, the Danish, they looked at this and they said, well, it's quite clear that cannabis is contributing to our schizophrenia diagnoses. And then they wanted to estimate, just how much it was. And here's the conclusion that they came to. At a population level, assuming causality, 1/5 of cases of schizophrenia among young males might be prevented by averting cannabis use disorder. Results highlight the importance of early detection and treatment and policy decisions regarding cannabis use and access. And this is essentially the graph showing how this has changed over time. Now, this red line is the percentage of the population of schizophrenia that can be attributed to cannabis. Back here in the 70s, it's like 2%, stays really, really low, sub 5% to the 90s. And then again, when the high potency cannabis rises because the market increases, we just see this hockey stick going up. Where now in 2022, they believe that nearly 20% of cases are due to cannabis-induced psychotic disorder. Okay, so that's it for me to...
I mean, male to female ratio there. Like, the women's wasn't quite hockey sticked. And why was that? That was the difference, right? I wasn't reading that graph wrong. That is what the black versus... No, wait. Modeled, parf, bottled, PA, females. Yeah, no, males versus females. And whatever these two colors are doesn't actually be on there. So interesting. All right. I'm going to watch, there's actually 2 TikToks. One of which is the one that the woman commented on because I went and found it.
Oh, sitting like this.
Day 1 of posting my boyfriend's sister laughing until she goes viral. That is assuming the one I just reposted actually reposted on my public ones. Yeah.
Not enough people know about the fact that
wimpy white boys are why we're here. I literally just read that and reposted it. We're going to watch it together. And then the 3-year-old who got kicked out of daycare for 2 days for escaping from the daycare. And then we're going to listen to the mother's story. And no, she didn't overreact. And this is parenting under capitalism.
boys in the NICU are called wimpy white boys. And the reason why is because they have a lower survival rate than their female and minority counterparts. And I think that really translates into the world today, because what we're seeing, the reason we're in the situation we're in with Christian nationalism and the manosphere and red pill is because white boys got beat at all their games. They literally, and I'm not saying it was my husband or his father, I'm saying the system was set up to benefit white men, and minorities and women started to fight for our rights, and people agreed we were a product of society. We should be helping society. We should be furthering, and women went into the workforce. Guess what white boys didn't do? They didn't come home and learn the other skills. So we surpass them. We dominate when it comes to academics. We dominate when it comes to college educations. Black women have the most advanced degrees percentage-wise in our nation. Minorities have taken over the jobs that those white boys would have been handed years ago. I was told by two men in my life, two men that I would have considered people I would have not thought to have said this, looked at me and said they didn't get the job because a DEI hire happened. A woman got the job. Boys, no, you didn't lose the job to a woman because of her female parts. You lost because of her brain. You lost because she's more organized. You lost because you don't know how to talk to people the way a woman does. You lost because you don't have the ability to prioritize and multitask the way women can. Women beat men at their own game. Minorities beat white people at their game. And this is what happens. The one group that is the most butthurt about having to work harder are white men. That's why you're not getting the job. You're not willing to put in the effort that the rest of us are. So sit down and let us take the wheel. Not enough people know about the fact that white boys in the NICU are called wimpy white boys. And the reason why is because they have a lower survival rate than their female and minority counterparts. And I think that really translates into the world today, because what we're seeing,
I am making this video. I'm going to try my best not to get emotional and to only speak with clear facts. And I will show my findings at the end of this video and my evidence. So this is an incident that happened yesterday at my daughter's daycare, which she will not be attending anymore. It is the South Hill KinderCare in Spokane, Washington. The incident happened at 4:30 yesterday. I was waiting to make a video until I lodged complaints with CPS, DCYF, Board of Licensing, and KinderCare Corporate. So I took care of all of that this morning. Now it is 4 p.m. on March 26th, and hence why the video is getting made. So, sorry. Yesterday, when I'm on my way to pick up my daughter for ballet from her daycare, I look down at my phone and I see that I have a voicemail from my daughter's daycare. I'm driving, I'm not actively on my phone, so I missed the call. I call them back. They left a voicemail at 4:28 p.m. I call them back at 4:30 p.m. The center director answers, and she lets me know that my daughter, who is 3 years old, got out of the outside playground area and ran into oncoming traffic on Ray Street. Immediately, I cut her off because that's terrifying. And I say, "Oh my God, is she okay?" The center director sighs and she says, "Yeah, Ava's fine. I'm just letting you know that she's suspended because she's not listening." So with her tone, with the incident that happened, I'm immediately getting mad, super upset. Mama Bear's coming out. So I say, "Okay, I'll be there in a moment." And I hang up the phone. I called my grandma and I'm like, "Hey, please tell me if I'm in the wrong, because I understand, Ava's my only child. Maybe I'm being super helicopter parent, but this seems like it would 100% be on the daycare, and her getting suspended for it especially seems insane to me." So my grandma, redirects me. She tells me, like, "No, you're completely valid. That is insane. Go in there and you need to speak to them. You need to get Ava, and just good riddance." And I'm like, "Yep." I'm like, exactly what I was thinking. So I show up and I'm trying to calm myself down, because like, I'm a big girl. I'm 5'10", 200 pounds. I'm trying to handle this with couth and have decorum and have them not somehow paint me as like aggressive or in the wrong in any way. That's my biggest fear. So I go in there, and the way that this center is set up, there's a front door that you need one passcode to get in. There's a second door that you also have to pass through that has a separate passcode from the front door. Inside of that second door is the center. So if you go right when you enter the door, there's two offices. There's the center director's office and the assistant center director's office. My daughter is standing right in front of the front door when I get there. No adults next to her. The gate to her classroom closed. She can't even get in there. So immediately I start getting upset again, because the only thing that you need to get out is push the door. There's no codes to get out. The doors aren't locked. So Ava very easily could have went out of those doors, ran into oncoming traffic again, and had a possibly fatal incident, because the fact that this wasn't fatal is by the grace of God. I prayed so hard last night after this, and I have not felt easy since this whole incident happened. So I'm immediately upset again. I take Ava's hand and we start going to her classroom. I'm looking back because I do see that there's a woman in the second office, not the office that Ava was next to, but in the second one. And I see that there's a lady in there. You can see her shadow and stuff. She not once notices that I came in. She doesn't notice that Ava's gone, because Ava didn't say like, "Mommy." She didn't jump on me. Nothing of the sort. She just slowly walked up to me and we both walked away. And I'm looking at that lady because I want her to notice that Ava's gone, because I want her to freak out and think, "Oh my God, maybe Ava ran outside." Because why, if you are interested to take care of kids, are you not supervising them better? So I'm looking, about 2 minutes pass. She never once looks up. So then I make peace with that. Not my circus, not my monkeys. I go to Ava's cubby and I'm immediately gathering all of her things because I know they think she's just suspended for 2 days. She is never coming back to this facility. I would never, ever let that happen again. So I'm gathering all of her things. The center director is in the classroom. And then finally, she says something to me. And I did not engage with her because, frankly, I don't want to talk to her. I'm upset and I think she knows that she's in the wrong. So eventually she goes, she's like, yeah, Ava's just not listening. And she's putting everything on Ava, my 3-year-old daughter, saying it's Ava's fault. She got out of the gate. A bystander actually is the one that got her. She didn't tell me this on the phone. She didn't tell me this in the voicemail. She's only telling me this in person, that a friendly neighborhood man is the one that got Ava and was able to bring him back. So that also upsets me because not even one of the teachers was able to get her.
As a mother, this is a terrifying story. What should really terrify all of you as human beings on this planet is how not one grown-ass adult at this daycare center said, wait a minute, why are we holding a 3-year-old responsible, right? That is not what adults who are, there's no such fucking thing on this planet. That's the most made up grown-ass adults. Because we don't. We group think together. Right? Oh, yeah, no, it was the 3-year-old's fault. Yeah, absolutely. How do we group think onto the 3-year-old? Like they had a meeting. They didn't need to have a meeting. It's just human nature. Scapegoat the child? Our jobs are at stake. You let a child be in danger and then let them be in danger more. Anyone could have come and stolen the child.
And also, Ava's a girl. Strange man got her. Doesn't make me feel very good. So then I just immediately just start looking down, grabbing all of Ava's things. I cannot believe she has so much stuff here. So then I'm like holding Ava's hand, and the director is just still, kind of saying the same things. Ava's not listening. She needs to leave. And I'm like, yeah, when I toured this facility in June, there were huge gray locks on all of the outside areas. I was like, so I'm just confused on how she got out. She looks at the teacher, looks back at me, and then she goes, yeah, Ava's just not listening. She completely disregards the question. So then I just go, okay, and I leave. I don't say bye. I don't say have a good day. I don't let her know that we're never coming back. I just say, okay, bye, and I leave. Once we get into the car, Ava starts complaining that her head hurts, her neck hurts, and she doesn't feel good. Not like Ava. So it's 5 p.m. at this point. And I'm like, fuck. I try to call CPS to lodge a complaint immediately because I know that this is wrong. I know that they need to be shut down. And the fact that they had no accountability is very scary as a parent. And go back to bed, baby. And I am just thinking it turned out good for Ava. She was really shaken up after. But the fact that this could happen to someone else's child and so easily be a fatal incident, it doesn't sit right with me. So anyway, Ava's doing all this complaining and then she falls asleep. 5 p.m. Not like her. So I immediately take her to the ER. I think she might have a concussion. I'm like, maybe she fell because they weren't very forthcoming about all the details of the incident. Why would I put it past them to hide that she fell and hit her head? They also never gave me any type of incident report. They never once apologized. And they never said, like, this will never happen again or this has never happened. Nothing of the sort. So I take her to the ER. My partner comes and sits with us after a bit. And she ends up getting cleared. She does not have a concussion. But I don't think that it's crazy for me to think that, And then while I'm in the waiting room, I'm looking all these things up and we have like a KinderCare family packet. And in that packet, it says nothing about a child being suspended for escaping the grounds or even like for bad behavior. There's nothing about that. Children can be expelled, I guess, if they are like a risk for other kids, but that's not how she is. So then I'm like, they just made up this whole fucking policy to suspend her. And I don't know. When I talked to KinderCare corporate, they took accountability. They said this is a horrible thing. But I don't trust them. I will never, ever let my daughter go to another KinderCare. And it's really hard, especially being a single mom and having a career. It feels impossible sometimes to find somewhere where you feel okay leaving your kids there. And I just hate that this happened. And I hate Ava had to go through that. I hate how fatal this could have been. And I hate the thought of parents in that facility not knowing what happened. And I hate how blasé the entire staff was about it happening. And the fact that they weren't even the ones to get her. But anyways, I'm going to leave screenshots of all the stuff at the end. Here is the voicemail that they left me at 4:38.
I don't think she reads it out loud. I think the person read it out loud. So forgive me if I had to pause and she reads it. Hi, my name is Ariel. Not even this is Ariel, right? My name is Ariel. You don't know me. I'm a random person of 30 who look after the children at this center. I with the South Hill Kinder Care. Miss Ava, her child, right, decided it would be funny if she left the gate when they were outside. The teacher, seen her the whole time, Chase tried to chase her down. She thought it was funny running on the side of Regal, so she will need to be picked up and she cannot return tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.
Obviously, I can't play it, but you can read what it says. And here is the policy that says nothing about suspension for escaping the grounds. Okay, I am making this video.
All right, I'm ending this here. It's today's stream. See you next time.